Okay, so let's get right into this. Basically, a lot of this information is breaking news where it's talking about essentially what Trump and Elon and DOGE and the Social Security Administration through Commissioner Dudek are finding related to what's happening with the United States. And as a result of that, you're going to find that some of this information is some of it's good, some of it's bad, but the bottom line is this is what they're actually publishing. The most recent one directly from the White House. Let's get into it real quick. The Trump administration will not cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid benefits. Here's like from their perspective. President Trump himself has said it over and over and over again. Elon Musk didn't say that either. The press is lying again. Again, publication from the White House. Here is Musk's direct quote, the waste and fraud in entitlement spending, which is most of the federal spending, is entitlements. So that's like the big one to eliminate. That's the sort of half trillion, maybe 6 to 7 billion a year. And, quote, White House says, he's absolutely right. Let's keep rocking. Fact, the U.S. Government Accountability Office estimates taxpayers lose as much as $521 billion annually to fraud. And most of that is within entitlement programs such as Medicare and Medicaid. That's a high number, but I know there's a lot of fraud in those programs, so maybe that one's right. Fact, over the past 2 decades, the federal government has made an estimated $2.7 trillion in improper payments, the majority of which come in the form of payments to deceased individuals or those who no longer are eligible for government programs. Well, that one we know has a lot of strength to it because of overpayments with the Social Security Administration. And, basically they just said over the past 2 decades, so a 20-year period, yeah, 2.7 trillion, that one's probably accurate. Fact, the Social Security Administration made an estimated 72 billion in improper payments between 2015 and 2022. So there's your 72 billion just in the Social Security Administration creating overpayments, which they're now trying to claw back by increasing the 10% clawback to 100% of your benefits clawback. Fact, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services estimated it made 140 plus billion in improper payments in 2024 alone. Quote from the White House, what kind of a person doesn't support eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse in government spending that ultimately costs taxpayers more? Directly from the website, from the White House, from Trump, obviously. So, with that said, he's not wrong. Fraud, waste, abuse of funds is rampant in the United States government, not only on this continent, but also almost every other continent on planet Earth. Now, with that said, just keeping in mind, the Social Security Administration is going through some pretty damn big ups and downs. Okay. Very, very big. Very, very big. So let's go through some of those things real quick so you understand exactly what's going on. There was an article produced by Ely Hager, March 12th, 2025. So basically, today, the president wanted it and I did it. That was the quote. That was the quote that they took from Commissioner Dudek. The president wanted it and I did it. He's required to do it. The president says you got to go this direction. He's part of the cabinet. He's got to go that direction. That was a recording that revealed the head of Social Security's thoughts on DOGE and Trump. In a recording obtained by ProPublica, acting Social Security Commissioner Leland Dudek portrayed his agency as facing peril, which also encouraging patience with the DOGE kids. Now, let's just be honest here. There are secret recordings going on with the Social Security Administration where, like I said to you guys, this stuff is going to start leaking out because the Social Security Administration is mostly filled with political spectrum, Democrat, left leaning individuals. Doesn't mean they're bad, just means that it's not a lot of Republicans working at the Social Security Administration because Republicans don't like social, insurance programs. They much prefer capitalism. They don't like socialism. They prefer capitalism. So anyways, you're going to be seeing things now that the Republican Party is controlling the Social Security Administration where people are coming out and aggressively doing things to quasi-sabotage the Republican Party inside the Social Security Administration. This is some of it. And these are just recordings, right? Stuff like that. ProPublica is a nonprofit newsroom that investigates abuses of power, blah, blah, blah. Since the arrival of the team from Elon Musk's Department of Governmental Efficiency, Social Security is in a far more precarious place than has been widely understood, according to Leland Dudek, the acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration. Quote, I don't want the system to collapse. Remember when you guys gave me a bunch of shit for saying that the Social Security Administration could potentially collapse with massive funding cuts, with massive employee removal? Remember how you guys said that? I'm just going to phrase something. The word collapse has been used by the prior commissioner and the current commissioner. Okay. So just for those of you that wanted to just shoot those arrows right at me, no offense. I love you all. I love you all. But get your shit together, because if you don't realize what's going on, then you are on the dinner table, and then you are the thing that potentially they look at for, oh, they're not noticing. We take a little here. We take a little here. All right. All right. Let me explain to you. When government officials say they're not going to touch Social Security, the Democrats are saying they're not going to touch it. But what they're not saying, and they are doing, is that they know that they will completely collapse the federal government spending capabilities when they spend to the point that we can't afford our debt payments. So, are the Democrats going to change Social Security? No, they're going to wipe it off the planet of the earth within a period of time that is far sooner and faster than when the retirement program runs out of money. Why? Because when you don't stop spending on money you don't have, known as the federal government, you end up in a spot where you can't afford the monthly payments. Anybody have a credit card? Anybody gone through that? We are so many trillions in debt, and we don't make enough each year to pay off the problem. So, are the Democrats going to fix Social Security? No. Are they ever going to be able to tax the rich? No. All those things, impossible. Do we still need Democrats to come out with ideas and poke the Republicans? Absolutely. Absolutely. Are the Republicans going to fix Social Security benefits? Well, either one of two things are going to happen. Either one of two things are going to happen. They're either going to be successful with creating the most efficient Social Security benefit program that's ever existed, where a lot of people are going to be very unhappy with some stuff, or the thing's going to collapse. There's no in between on this. There's no in between. It's either going to collapse and people aren't going to get payments and it's going to have problems. There's going to be interruptions, all that stuff. Or they're going to end up with the most efficient, highly AI operated Social Security program that's ever existed in the history of the human race. Are Republicans touching Social Security benefits? Are Republicans changing Social Security benefits? Absolutely. 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 Okay. And so you have to understand that they are touching them by changing the program, which ultimately outlines a change to how you will interact with directly, a lot of things, the services of the benefits, the actual benefits, getting a hold of them, trying to contact them in different ways. I mean, I know you guys, you try to call them, it takes an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours on the phone, then the phone magically hangs up in the middle of a sentence. Problem. It's a problem. By the way, also, you guys will notice that there are bots in the chat section. There are bots in the comment section. Weir, the other guy who's basically doing Social Security videos, who was a prior manager, his bots almost always now show up specifically in our chat section. His channel, didn't exist that long. Now it's massive. But again, when you have that kind of stuff going on, which I'm not allowed to do that as an attorney. I have to meet the ethical and moral requirements of the bar. So I can't do that stuff. But bottom line is, when you have that stuff, and you'll see other people's bots in here as well, I can't stop them. YouTube is grabbing some of them, but they can't get all of them. It just is what it is. Okay. So if you see somebody going, you should go check out this channel, you should go do this thing, it's commercial content that's not supposed to be existing, jumping onto the channel. It is what it is. I can't stop it. Okay. All right. With that said, Dudek's comments, Commissioner Dudek's comments, delivered to a group of senior staff and Social Security advocates attending both in person and virtually, offer an extraordinary window into the thinking of the top agency official in the volatile early days of the second Trump administration. The Washington Post first reported Commissioner Dudek's acknowledgement that DOGE is calling the shots of Social Security, and quoted several of his statements, but the full recording reveals that he went much further. Citing not only the actions being taken at the agency by the people he repeatedly called the DOGE kids, but also extensive input he has received from the White House itself. So, putting it another way, when it comes to Social Security benefits, Elon is directly interacting with the SSA. President Trump is directly interacting with the SSA because direction is coming from the highest levels. Okay, with that said, when a participant in the meeting asked him why he wouldn't more forcefully call out President Donald Trump's continued false claims about widespread Social Security fraud as BS, Commissioner Dudek answered, so we published, for the record, what was actually the numbers there on our website. This is the dealing with, this is dealing with, dash, have you ever worked with someone who's manic depressive? So, I mean, things are a little spicy right now. They're a little bit spicy right now between basically the people working at the SSA, the commissioner of the SSA, and the White House. They're spicy, okay? Throughout the meeting, Commissioner Dudek made alarming statements about the perils facing the Social Security system, but he did not so in an oddly informal, discursive manner. It left several participants baffled as to the ultimate fate of the nation's largest and most popular Social Security program, one that serves 73 million Americans. Quote, are we going to break something? End quote, Commissioner Dudek asked at one point, referring to what DOGE has been doing with Social Security data. Quote, he said, I don't know. Spicy, very spicy. But then he said in a more reassuring tone, quote, they're learning, let people learn they're going to make mistakes, end quote. Dudek embodied the dramatic whipsawing of life as a public servant under the DOGE. For 25 years, he was the ultimate faceless bureaucrat, a mid-level analyst who had bounced between federal agencies, ultimately landing at the Social Security Administration and focusing on information technology, cybersecurity, and fraud prevention. Obviously, this is a left-leaning article. When you hear ultimate faceless bureaucrat, mid-level analyst bounce between federal agencies, landing at social, the person who wrote this was being a dick. You know what I mean? Just being not a nice person. And as a result of that, you can see that they're not really, you know what I mean? Like they could just, and you know what this is what bothers me about the legacy news now, because this came from legacy news. On the left and the right, they've mastered the ability to just shovel dirt on top of a human being's head. Doesn't matter if they won a Nobel Prize. Doesn't matter if they're the greatest genius science has ever seen. Doesn't matter if they are able to help the homeless on a daily basis. They will bury them and destroy them with words because the American people and their analysis skills are a little limited. Okay. All right. Next one. He was largely unknown even within the agency, but in February, he suddenly vaulted into the public eye when he was put on leave for surreptitiously sharing information with DOGE. It appeared that he might lose his job, but then he was unexpectedly promoted by the Trump administration to the position of acting commissioner. At the time, he seemed unreservedly committed to the DOGE agenda, writing then deleting a bellicose LinkedIn post in which he expressed pride in having bullied agency executives, shared executive contact information, and circumvented the chain of command to connect DOGE with the people who get stuff done. All right, so let's kind of go through this real quick. All right, during Donald Trump's second presidency, ProPublica will focus on the areas most in need of scrutiny, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. All right, quote, I work for the president. Okay. I need to do what the president tells me to do, Commissioner Dudek said. According to the recording, I've had to make some tough choices I didn't agree with. But the president wanted it, and I did it. He ended later. He didn't name specific actions that Trump did or did not direct. At still another point, Dudek said, quote, I don't want to fire anyone, end quote, but that, quote, a lot of the structural changes that you've seen me make at headquarters, I've had long conversations with the White House about and the DOGE team. And that's not to say I don't have some more hard choices to come, which means they're going to fire more people. The president has an agenda. I'm a political appointee. I need to follow that agenda, end quote. Okay. So Dudek's remarks come at a time. Basically, many Social Security employees are feeling confused about Dudek, his role versus DOGE's. Layoffs, looming specter of potentially thousands more employees taking a buyout by a Friday deadline have meant even less attention to the complicated casework of low-income, elderly people and people with physical and intellectual disabilities. Bottom line is this. What you need to know is this. I mean, some of the quotes from Commissioner Dudek are spicy. Okay, let me give you another one here. Now, 5 employees told ProPublica their tech systems seem to be crashing nearly every day, leading to more delays in serving beneficiaries. This was already a problem, they said, but it has gotten much worse and is not the norm, 2 employees said. And under a policy that DOGE has applied at many agencies, frontline Social Security staff have been restricted from using their government purchase cards for any sum above $1. Remember how we did the video and then literally We did video on their purchase cards at the Social Security Administration, what OIG found, and then YouTube basically cut my feed with that video or somewhere in the system because I had good internet. So, but bottom line is they're now limited to basically $1 purchases when it comes to buying things. Elections have consequences, Commissioner Dudek wrote in a March 1 email to the agency staff. In the meeting last week, Dudek was asked about many of these organizational changes, according to the recording, regarding the closure and consolidation of regional offices, as well as the cuts to the part of the agency that help evaluate disability claims, which is already severely backlogged. They're talking about DDS personnel, disability determination services. He said, quote, "It certainly was done at the administrative level. That would have not been my first preference. I think we need to see what's going to happen in terms of fallout." I'll read that to you again. Okay, direct quote. All right, here we go. So quote, "It certainly was done at the administrative level. That would have not been my first preference. I think we need to see what's going to happen in terms of fallout," end quote. Quote, again, he said, "I work for the president. DOGE is part of that," end quote. Dudek, who has been scheduled to speak for only 15 minutes, according to a copy of the agenda, instead spoke for about an hour, talking about everything from his upbringing by a disabled mother who depended on Social Security. Quote, "I actually like having the kids around," he said, adding that although they were unfamiliar with the nuances of Social Security, he was trying to get them to be more thoughtful. They're thinking about work differently. Quote, I'm going through the quotes with this article to speed up. He was honest about his shortcomings. Quote, "I'm in a role that I did not expect to be in," he said. Quote, "I'm an IT guy and a fraud guy." Commissioner Dudek will eventually be replaced by Frank Bisignano, Trump's long-term pick to run the Social Security Administration. At times, Dudek sounded fatalistic. Quote, "I'm the villain," he said in the recording. I'm not going to have a job after this. I get it. Whoa. You know? All right, so Kurt is a trollbot. Let me see if I can find Kurt real quick. Okay, cool. So let's just go ahead and there we go. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, guys, remember there's going to be trolls in here. There's going to be bots in here. I have to talk with YouTube about it tomorrow. We are going to have a moderator soon, but there was an email problem. I tried to set it up today as I was going between offices, and there was a coding issue, and I couldn't get past it. So I have to get one of our tech guys inside the server to go ahead and fix the code issue. All right. So with that said, understanding all this, again, that quote that Commissioner Lee Dudek gave us, he said, "I'm the villain." He said, "I'm not going to have a job after this. I get it." So things are spicy right now. All right. Where are things at with the blackout? Because the blackout is basically where the Social Security Administration is going to be limiting potential phone options. Okay. So potential phone use. So let's go through that real quick just so that, everybody basically understands what's going on. That way everybody's kind of right up front. This was made by the Washington Post, obviously traditionally left-leaning, so just keep that in mind. Written by Hannah Natanson, Lisa Rain, Elizabeth Dwoskin, and Faze Siddiquai. Social Security scraps plans for far-reaching cuts to their phone system. The Social Security Administration late Wednesday abandoned plans it was considering to end phone service for millions of Americans filing retirement and disability claims after the Washington Post reported that Elon Musk's US DOGE service team was weighing the change to root out alleged fraud. Now, here's the question I have that I want you to consider throughout this process. Basically, here's the thing, okay? How do people who have ear problems, okay, go ahead and, deal with phone stuff? Well, they have all these phone options that they can use that are for disabled individuals. Well, what if somebody has, for example, an issue with a computer and they can't use a computer to go ahead and print out the forms? Well, then the only way they're going to get the forms is to go to the Social Security field office and go ahead and get the forms printed for them. But how are they going to be able to get the forms if they can't get an appointment at the local field office? Well, they have to call the phone number to go ahead and get an appointment set up at the local field office. So, in other words, or maybe the local field office could set it up for them if they complain enough. But in other words, what I'm saying is we're starting to see the actual problems arising to the point where you can't get to the end game part of what you need done. because there are portions of the SSA that are starting to just go to dead ends, right? It's a problem. It's a major problem. So let's say somebody has a visual impairment, right? And they can't go ahead and use the internet on their phone, or they can't use their computer to download and print the forms at their house. Now, remember, a lot of you are not going to right up front say, hey, a lot of you are going to be able to, you're going to say, hey, why can't they just print it at their house? Why can't they just have somebody else, one of their friends, print it for them? Remember, I work with a lot of disabled people who are unable to read, unable to write, don't know how to use a computer, don't even know how to use a phone properly. So a lot of these individuals, um, you know, a lot of these individuals cannot go ahead and have a phoneless system. And the blackout that was going to potentially occur through Elon and the DOGE team was to black out the phones for particular items where you wouldn't be able to use them to apply for benefits. So, for the agency that mostly deals with the fragile class who have mental and physical impairments, or they're just old and their impairments are inherent in their age, you can't cut out the paper option, the phone option, and the computer option. You have to have as many options available as possible. All right, so here, let's go through this real quick. All right, so Washington Post reported that Elon Musk's US DOGE service team was weighing the change to root out alleged fraud. The shift would have been directed at elderly and disabled people to rely on the internet and in-person field offices to process their claims, curtailing a service that 73 million Americans have relied on for decades to access earned government benefits. However, Social Security and White House officials said the administration will still move ahead with another far more limited element of the original proposal. Customers will no longer be able to change a direct deposit routing number or other bank information by phone. Quote, approximately 40% of the Social Security direct deposit fraud is associated with someone calling SSA to change direct deposit bank information. End quote, the agency's press office said in a statement hours after the Post published its article. The current protocol of simply identifying questions by telephone is no longer enough to prevent fraud. Now, that's not an inaccurate statement. That is true. Okay. I know a lot of people who unfortunately deal, stuff to people, and they're bad people, and they find a way to get inside the user's head, get their information, call up the SSA, and have their checks redirected to them. And what they do, just so you know, is they basically force them to go live at some place that they control, and then they just keep taking their money to give them the product that they need to be able to use because their brain is chemically changed to be requiring that thing that they inject into their body, or use a pipe or whatever. That shift will happen by the end of March. According to the DOGE account on X, the statement did not say how much fraud is believed to occur through direct deposit transactions. The statement said that all other SSA telephone services remain unchanged, although they were considering doing blackouts with a lot of the services for your benefits that would potentially be able to, apply you for things like retirement, disability, etc. In recent days, Musk's cost-cutting team at Social Security, which has led a fast downsizing of staff members and services, had weighed the telephone service changes to claims processing and direct deposit bank account transactions, according to one person briefed on internal deliberations and records obtained by the Post. So just to be clear, they were thinking about potentially cutting, essentially, the applying for benefits, right? To actually apply for retirement, apply for disability benefits, etc. And then, services change for, basically direct deposit bank information, which they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. They're going to stop that from happening. If the user of some, something that they use a pipe for, inject into themselves, wants to go ahead and have a change of their bank account information, they're going to have to go to the SSA and do it. And remember, I have literally had claimants handed off to me by dealers who drove them to their hearing and then handed them off to me. And I was disgusted by it. Absolutely disgusted by it. All right. The changes threatened to disrupt Social Security's internal operations and limit its ability to serve the public. Current and former officials warned, just as DOGE is targeting the agency for the across-the-board staff cuts of more than 12%, the agency's toll-free number is a mainstay for older customers who do not have internet access or who have trouble navigating the web, right? Because trying to teach an 80-year-old or 90-year-old how to use the internet is it's a work in progress. it's not a long work in progress because, to be fair, a lot of them are just not going to use it, and it's never going to happen. People in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they're still doing it. They're getting into it, but 80s, 90s, it ain't happening. And then, of course, for all the people that are 125 and older, they're rock stars at it. It just, when it comes to filing taxes, those 125-year-olds, man, let me tell you, they know exactly where to put their their earnings consistently get in. That's all I'm saying there. Okay. All right. The changes threaten to disrupt Social Security's internal operations and limit its ability to serve the public. Current and former officials warned, just as DOGE is targeting the agency. But bottom line, the phone service proposals came less than a month after members of the DOGE team arrived at Social Security headquarters and began looking for ways to cut what they labeled fraud, waste, and abuse. As part of their mandate from President Donald Trump to slim down government, said two people briefed on internal deliberations. DOGE, which stands for Department of Governmental Efficiency, has sought to slash staff members and spending across all federal agencies, stirring chaos and criticism that the team is cutting essential functions. The way you define essential functions is like, are you cutting off a way that somebody can change their benefits, modify their benefits, like a service for their benefits, or potentially end a benefit? They are changing things that affect benefits and the services towards benefits. And the argument now is only when will there be some sort of collapse where an interrupted benefit actually occurs. So to be clear on this thing, just so you guys understand, there's two types of interruptions. There's the known interruption where they send you a notice. They say, hey, this is going to happen. You're not going to get your benefits right away. Sucks for you, but guess what? Here's our plan, right? That's the known. Then you have the unknown interruptions where their computers have issues, where their computers have problems, where they keep coming up with errors. I had an email problem today, and I spent way too much time trying to click around and get this damn email system to work, but the coding wasn't working. So, I was in the C panel trying to do this, trying to do that, wasn't working for some reason. As a result, I didn't get the thing done to get the moderator to be able to go ahead and be in the chat, which, of course, is just part of owning a business. I'm just curious, how many of you guys in the chat section or the comments have owned a business before? Because when you talk to employees that have never owned a business, that have never had to deal with failing technologies, printers that won't print, basically shipments that are 2 weeks late and nobody knew to go ahead and check on it, all that kinds of stuff, fires that literally pop up out of nowhere. I'm just curious how many of you have actually owned a business, because I was talking with somebody the other day who was an employee and they were trying to schmooze me on how much they knew. And I was just like, God damn, if you don't own a business, you never get abused by the commercial capitalism tech cluster bleeps that seem to happen. And they are just obnoxious. You'll be sitting there just like, okay, everything's working, everything's cool. Boom, out of nowhere, entire backend server goes down. And you're just like, how did this happen? How could this happen? Literally trolls, magic. It just goes down for whatever reason. You go call the host group and you're like, why did this go down? They're like, oh, we don't know. It just went down. Something went wrong with the coding. We don't know. It's just so frustrating. Yeah, Tim F, 2 businesses. Yeah, absolutely. So it's so frustrating. If you ever own a business, guys, and you haven't owned a business, remember 10 to 15% of your day will be spent on fixing things that have nothing to do with what your business is actually about. All right, let's keep rocking and rolling. Even so, billionaire Elon Musk has continued sounding the alarm that 150-year-olds and even people who have lived more than 3 centuries are somehow receiving tens of millions of dollars in taxpayer money, an implausible set of claims he has made. Without evidence over the past month, Musk spoke about the issue as recently as Monday on Fox News, and Trump amplified his allegations last week during his address to Congress. The anti-fraud campaign. Now, to be fair, there weren't gajillions and zillions of people who were super old getting benefits. There were a lot of people who were super old that were filing taxes with earnings that were total, fraud was occurring with. So if you're looking for fraud that was occurring with old people that had Social Security numbers that were never capped off, they exist, and they were filing income and playing a tax game. That's where the big fraud was. I'm not sure why they're not producing articles on that yet, but that's probably over the next couple of days what's going to be coming out. All right, quote, his playbook has now become quite clear, said Paul Barrett, Deputy Director of the Stern Center for Business and Human Rights at the New York University. Of course, very left-leaning, so take that into consideration. Referencing the parallel quest for fraud in the 2022 Twitter acquisition, it is an extraordinary game he plays of wrecking institutions in order to dominate them. I mean, to be fair, he's doing that right now. There's a bit of that going on. But to counter argument that if you look at how much fraud exists in the United States from the federal government, I mean, USAID was full of it, full of it. And then I love it. Every time there's like, election, a USAID thing, all of a sudden, isn't it a little odd that we have federal requirements for everybody, not just me and you, federal requirements for everybody to back up documents. Sometimes it's 7 years, sometimes it's 10 years, sometimes it's this, sometimes we have federal requirements to back up documents, but yet USAID is receiving directives to literally shred and then light on fire the remaining paper. So like I'm just sitting here, you know, confused about, you know what I mean? Like they were supposed to hold on to those voting machines. They were supposed to hold on to all of those, documents that were being sent to different continents about, here's the money, here's what's happening, here's what's going. It disappeared. It doesn't exist anymore. Like inside the federal government are Mexican mafia level acid baths to take care of the problems. And I'm just like, like they put all this shit on us and then they break all the rules from themselves. Like, and then, and then they wonder, oh, why don't people respect politicians? Well, you represent the greatest cartel on planet Earth, the US federal government. Like, what do you expect us to respect you? Like, I'm not sure. Like, like if you look at like the main branches, right? You look at the giant agencies, and that's not good too, because when that disrespect goes all the way to the judges and we lose respect for our judicial system, that's it. That's the last line. That's it. They're the upholders of the Constitution. You lose them and what they mean, that's it. That's it. Then nobody respects the system. Nobody wants the system. All right. At a tense meeting Tuesday, DOGE staff members grilled career officials about phone fraud, but as employees suggested potential solutions, DOGE representatives, quote, weren't interested in anything else but defending the decision that they had already made, end quote, one of the people said. Quote, Social Security is dedicated to protecting both the public and trust funds from fraud, waste, and abuse, Nicole Tigman said. A Social Security spokeswoman said in an email, we continuously investigate and analyze potential threats to strengthen and secure our programs. Asked about the possible end to telephone service for claims, Tigman said, quote, we have nothing to announce at this time. That's another thing, too. You have to realize some of you call the Social Security Administration and you ask them questions and you're like, hey, guys, what's going on with this? Hey, guys, what's going on with that? And a lot of you get answers and the answers seem very vague. The answers seem like, there's not a real direction or answer, or it's like a wait and see thing. The SSA personnel are told that there are certain words that they're not allowed to use. There are certain topics that they're not allowed to talk about. There are certain things that they have to change the subject on. Okay. They are told that. They're specifically required to do that. So as a result, like, you call the SSA, remember, you're not always going to get a direct answer because they've received direct orders not to talk about something. All right. Next thing. All right. Claims processing is just one of the many tasks performed by employees who answer the toll-free Social Security phone number. They also field questions about benefits, retirement, and death benefit forms and other issues, meeting the needs of disabled and elderly populations who sometimes struggle to navigate websites and phone applications. DOGE concerns about phone fraud, said one person, briefed on the team's activities encompass both identity fraud, in which callers can impersonate older Americans to steal their benefits, and cheating in the disability program, while online and phone-based identity fraud amounts to a tiny fraction of the cost of the benefits program and problem is real, career employees and experts say. But cases in which disabled people try to game the claim system when they apply by phone are not prevalent enough to require drastic action or changes, particularly because employees are trained to ask a claimant multiple questions to verify their identity. Experts and employers said. Fraud in direct deposit transactions, meanwhile, has been recognized as a problem for several years. All right, let me tell you something, okay? I get calls about claimants where the SSA has a concern as to whether or not they are a valid individual. We had two people in 2024 who played games, and we do not know if the claimant during the process was still alive. We didn't know. We didn't know. We know that one of the claimants had moved to Mexico and then we could never get a hold of him or speak with the individual that we had on file. We knew another claimant had moved to basically one of the islands in the South China Sea area, and as as a reality, it's one of those situations where we could not get a hold of him, but we seemed to get a hold of his girlfriends. We seemed to get a hold of his friends to speak with them about how that person was super duper sick. When that stuff happens, sometimes the person has been passed away. Okay. Another thing, yeah, at this point, if you have questions or things that you want to say in statements to your local representatives, absolutely reach out if you want to, make a statement. But please remember to do a little bit of research and study on your own before you make a blanket aggressive statement. It is super duper crucial and important. With that said, okay, so Puerto Rican Mike just asked me, "Hey Walter, do you trust DOGE?" I will be very straightforward with you. I do not trust any action that any government, including HOAs, commits to actionably complete. I do not trust federal, state, county, local, town, HOA, whatever, any government official, whether they were currently working for the government or have worked in the past for the government. I do not trust them. That is because I know the managers and the bosses and this and that, and I know the people that work for them that don't like them. I do not trust any government individuals at all. You know why? Part of it's because they're people, they're human beings, okay? Part of it is because they used to live in the world where, to be very fair, they just, the government wouldn't fire anybody. They kept hiring on more and more and more and more and more and more government people. Like, what was it during Biden's era? It was like 1 in 4 new jobs was like an employment job with the federal government. Like, how in the hell could you build the government that big and not expect the damn thing to like literally collapse our financial system? Come on. But to answer your question, very direct. Now, look, I will say this. I trust military people that serve the military that are now out of the military. I trust them. I trust them a hell of a lot more than I do. Look, you have to understand too. When people are secure, which is not anybody nowadays for the most part, but when people are secure and they have no reason to lie, you're going to get the most brutal, honest answer out of their face. You will tend to get that from military people who know you because they will walk up to you with a smile on their face and tell you that you suck because of, and then they'll list it out for you. Bullet point 1, bullet point 2, bullet point 3. They'll give you the walk down. Now, some of them, right, they're not in a good spot, right? They overspent in Taiwan. Now they got a few kids over there, a few kids over here. Things are a little rough. Then they're just like everybody else. Then it's a situation where it's like, oof, you know what I mean? Oof. So, Richard Jackson, vets just speak the hardcore truth. Yeah, they usually do. They're easier to trust than people who are in an insecure place, not knowing what to do. And vets, you got to understand something too. Vets have been punished, abused, beaten up, all of that stuff. We put them in the washing machine, then we put them in the dryer, and they didn't come out with wrinkles. They came out with some deep wrinkles. You know what I mean? So as a result of that, I tend to like, people who have been through some shit. I like raisins, not grapes, because raisins. And let me tell you this, okay? Let me tell you this. You ever want the greatest, most brilliant, simple E equals MC squared information on theories of how life works? You don't get it from politicians. You certainly sure shit do not get it from academia personnel like professors. You don't get it from them. You get it from guys that drive cabs in cities. You want the best, most accurate, the way life works information? You ask a cab driver. They know. If you made a cab driver president of the United States, you would be seeing very interesting things happen. Some of it would be good, some would be terrible, but it would be a very different direction than we get from the politicians who smile at our face and then at the same time are signing the contract that doesn't do what they just told us they were going to do. So, it is the way it is. Now, the next video we're going to be doing is essentially about a Social Security employee who was arrested in a parking lot by the Social Security Administration for committing a type of fraud at the SSA. It is extra hot and spicy. When I read it, I was like, holy shit. Oh my goodness. Anyways, the point is, please remember to like, please remember to subscribe. We got some likes in there, but hit that like button. Also, head over to Google if you can, type in disability resolution or disability resolution law firm. Throw some stars up there if you want. Totally up to you, but they get me, rocking and rolling in the morning, which is getting tougher and tougher because I'm kind of aging very quickly. As you can see, I'm getting a lot of white hair, and that's a way too early thing for my age group. With that said, I hope, yes, Libra loves justice. I have studied Frank Bisignano. I do have a page of ideas I'm going to be sending to him, specifically on what things he can do to go ahead and fix stuff that a lot of Social Security reps, a lot of executives, especially White House, DOGE, would not know how to fix, would not know how to do. So I've got a whole list of things to go ahead and send him. He is a super CEO. I've listened to people talk about him. I've listened to reports that they've done on him. He's a superhuman. You know what I mean? People are going to hate him or love him, but as somebody who's an independent, he's a superhuman. So I'm hoping I can kind of give him some directional stuff going forward. But anyways, please remember to like and subscribe. Remember, I go live on Mondays and Thursdays to answer questions for free. Now, big thing is this. If you have a legal question that is not related to the law firm, that place representing you, please ask me during the live session on Mondays or Thursdays when I go live and answer questions for free. Or do one of those private hours if it's a bigger question, it has a bunch of stuff. The little mini contract is below. Don't send the law firm a giant text or an email demanding that I have to answer it right away, and it has nothing to do with me representing you or working on the claim or any of that stuff. We don't respond to those anymore. We don't have enough time. We get way too many of those in a single day. I would have to hire a person who worked all day with my knowledge just to answer those. We're not responding to those anymore. Okay. I do a free thing Monday and Thursday, answer the calls for free. Very simple, calling during that. Or if you have a big thing, private session is below. Now, with that said, the next video is about a topic. I'm trying to figure out a way to say it without it getting, tricked or triggered by, the coding of this whole thing. But imagine it has to do with a poll, you know what I mean? And an SSA employee and an SSA potential recipient. You get my drift? All right, cool. I'm going to put the URL for that video in the chat section. I will catch you all a little bit later. Yes, Real Beauty. I just got those face masks for kind of putting on my face to get rid of the wrinkles. I don't know if you guys know this, but a trick that I use, which doesn't show how beat up my skin and face are, is I put the light super bright. That's why everything looks a little bit washed out. That's why you can't really see how messed up my skin is and how messed up my face is. But when I do those full 4K videos, I'm like, man, what happened, dude? What happened? Holy shit. Oh, man. Anyways, I will catch you in the next video in about 5 to 10 minutes. We'll rock and roll from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, most viewed, clicked on, and subscribed to Disability Attorney in America. I'll see you the next video soon. Look for the URL in the chat and comment section. I'll catch up soon. Thank you so much. Attorney Walter Hnot. We'll go from there. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.